despite having an ultra-connected world where pretty much anybody can get a hold of pretty much anybody without an introduction. Like, you used to have to ask people for their number. Remember that? We are the loneliest generation ever. Why? Okay, we're back for the second of 4 critical brain-body chemicals that promote the good in our systems. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Today, it's oxytocin, or as I like to call it, relational dopamine. Oxytocin is the connection chemical. It's the relational chemical. It's crucial for trust and social bonding, but that's not all. It enables connections with others, loved ones, and even strangers, but also it's a mirror. It enables meaningful perception and connection with oneself. It's kind of the empathy hormone. It's a crucial lens with which you look at yourself. Have you ever been told that you have issues with self-esteem? Or have you ever struggled with the concept of appreciating yourself? Yeah, oxytocin. So let's just jump straight to our 2 big questions. What hijacks oxytocin and how do we reverse it, right? So we'll start with the hijack. Number 1, chronic stress. Cortisol, which is the primary stress hormone, of course, is an antagonist to oxytocin. This is one of the reasons why stress adversely affects relationships. You are more snappy, less empathetic, less warm. And it does this in at least 2 ways. Number 1, elevated cortisol suppresses oxytocin neuron activity in the brain. So the neurons don't even fire in the first place, right? And second, chronic stress reduces oxytocin receptor density in the brain. You have less of the chemical and you have less of the receptor. In other words, less of the locks and less of the keys, especially in the amygdala and the hippocampus. So the more stressed, the less relational and the less calm, which of course, less relational and less calm means more stress. So it's a vicious cycle. And when you're in that vicious cycle, the less accurate your perception of other people is and your perceptions of yourself. So chronic stress hijacks oxytocin. Number 2, low estrogen. Now, obviously, this only applies to half of the population, but the half of the population that it applies to, it is significant. Estrogen upregulates oxytocin receptors in female organs for childbirth purposes, of course, and in the amygdala and hippocampus. Now, low estrogen just means that oxytocin doesn't work as well. Think mood changes postpartum. But the same patterns exist when you're not pregnant. If your hormones are off, then your oxytocin either is going to be suppressed or simply is not going to work as it's supposed to. Number 3, insulin resistance and metabolic disorders. Similarly to the above, insulin resistance, diabetes, and obesity all have been linked to reduced receptor density and impaired oxytocin signaling, less locks and less keys. And number 4, pituitary dysfunction. Oxytocin is produced in the hypothalamus and released into the brain via the posterior pituitary. You don't really care, but obviously, if you have some level of pituitary dysfunction, be it from a tumor or whatever else, then it's going to have a direct effect on oxytocin release. A similar thing can be said for thyroid dysfunction, much more common, and that's number 5. The thyroid is the honorary 4th member of the HPA axis. That's hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal. The HPA axis is the master stress management system in the body, also the master hormone regulation system in the body. The thyroid is also managed by the pituitary, and it feeds signals back to the pituitary. So an underperforming thyroid can translate to an underperforming pituitary, which in turn affects other pituitary hormones. Number 6, last but not least, last of the chemical triggers anyways, inflammation. Certain inflammatory cytokines interfere with oxytocin signaling at the cellular level. But all of those that I just listed are chemical triggers. Are there any like behavior patterns or habits or activities that hijack oxytocin? The answer is, unfortunately, yes. Number 1, traumatic experiences, especially traumatic experiences early in life. Early childhood trauma disrupts the development of the system in general, particularly, once again, receptor density. So later in life, you can have plenty of keys, you just don't have enough locks. So if you've gone through some kind of tremendous trauma, especially in the developing years, you have potentially less receptors to start with, which just makes it that much more important that you pay attention to the solutions. This is part of why bonding and relationships can be very difficult later in life for victims of childhood trauma or childhood abuse. Number 2, sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation lowers hypothalamic activity and therefore lowers oxytocin release. And number 3, lack of physical touch. Mechanical stimulation to the skin, hugging, massage, triggers oxytocin release, and the absence of that lowers your baseline tone, which is a fancy way of saying your body will get used to a lower level and then the system does not respond as it should. Number 4, I know this feels like a lot. We're just going through the numbers, but bear with me. We're almost done. Social isolation reduces oxytocin signaling, worsening loneliness and anxiety. In the last 2 cases, oxytocin isn't being hijacked so much as it's getting crowded out. We communicate by screen. We work by screen. We play on screen. Every form of real flesh and blood human intimacy and interaction is being replaced by a version that uses a screen. Yes, including sex. And those versions are fundamentally changing the human experience and the human capacity for connection and communication. So, what do we do to reverse it? Here we go. Number 1, lower your cortisol. Stress reduction via breathing, gentle touch, prayer, meditation reduces cortisol levels so that oxytocin that's released can actually do something, right? So that's number 1. Number 2, assess endocrine health. Obviously, if your estrogen, your thyroid, your adrenals, your pituitary are off, then oxytocin is going to be off as well. Number 3, trust people. Now, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but you need to trust, even if, or especially if, you've been hurt in the past. Hear me out. The more we hurt, the more we build walls to prevent the same thing from happening in the future. And those walls become our prison. There is a school of thought that says trust is earned. That's true. And that you should not trust anyone who is untrustworthy, right? Who hasn't earned it, et cetera, et cetera. There's only one problem with that. First, nobody is fully trustworthy. Second, if you withhold trust, you are the biggest loser because oxytocin. There is a really strong case to be made for the idea that it's better to trust and be betrayed than not to trust at all for fear of being betrayed. Now, obviously, even as I say that, there are valid arguments on the other side to balance this as well. But from a neurochemical perspective, we, especially those among us previously wounded, tend to be too risk averse. You're going to have to risk trust if you want to expand those receptors. And lastly, physical affection, skin contact, eye contact. This one is in some ways related to the last one. We don't touch enough. Again, primarily because we live in a digital world, but also sometimes because we don't believe in it, because we're afraid of it. We're afraid of bonding. We're afraid of getting attached. This comes up a lot actually in purity culture regarding like relationships, and I don't have time to do justice to that whole can of worms. I'll be the first to say that most of us go through initial relationships when our brains are half cooked. So we need help. Okay? And the fears of us getting carried away are well-founded. But also, I'll be the first to say that when we go as far as no touch at all, neurochemically, we are setting ourselves up for dysfunction. We're creating the drama we're trying to avoid. And then, rather than arriving at purity, we're sometimes meeting our fate on the road we took to avoid it. All that to say, we need touch. Humans need to touch. They need eye contact and not through phone screens, right? And yes, it must be grounded in purity and in love and in humility and in restraint, and it must be. Next time, we tackle serotonin, the energy hormone. So if you could use more energy or more confidence or more consistency, this one's for you. Also, a huge favor. If something today in this video blew your mind, then leave a comment and let me know what it was. And if you liked something in this video, subscribe. And if it reminded you of anyone or made you think of anyone, send it to them with a personal recommendation, because once again, this is how we find our tribe.